Yes, Rohit. I think we are live. I'll just check once again. I'll just refresh the page. It's not visible. Okay, we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Wicked Whispers. I have with me Rohit again, and Rohit is joining me for yet another live. And this time, we are gonna shed some light on Ravichandran Ashwin's career. More importantly, the last few years as well. And we are also gonna discuss few things about BGT. First of all, welcome, Rohit. And just to
Hi,
start
hi,
this
Ritik.
live, I want yes, hi Rohit. I wanted to ask one important question. Was this retirement there in your head that Ashwin is going to retire in this phase, or you were expecting it to be little later, at least 2 or 3 years later, at least till the next cycle?
Yes, 100%. I mean, yes, you know for a fact that he is 38 now, yes, but he had that capability, right? Like if you can retire as the number three test all rounder, right? So I think you still have so much of cricket left in you. And he admitted it by himself as well in the press conference that he has a lot of cricket left in him, and he's gonna give it to the club level. So in that sense, I think yes, one more cycle was expected. But at the other end, right? If we look at maybe in a slightly practical manner, keeping your emotions aside, this looks to be a right decision actually, because post this BGT, correct? You only have the next series coming. If India, considering India don't qualify to the WTC final, okay, they have their next series playing in England, which is next year. Correct. India are going to play the next home test series in November 2025. Right. So, Ashwin is most probably looking at the fact that he might have considered the fact that he might be picked in the 11 regularly, no, only next year, sometime in November or December. So, to stay there for 1 year, right? I mean, I think definitely he'll go to England. He'll be a part of the squad. He might play 1 or 2 games, yes. But having that space, especially at this point of time in his career, and most importantly, with Washington Sundar coming in as well. I mean, India, to be very honest, they don't have a perfect replacement for Ravichandran Ashwin just yet. I mean, have they groomed one? Is something that we will have to question. Yes, there is Washington Sundar. He has also performed in the recent few years, but can he fill the huge shoes of Ashwin? That is a huge question that only time will answer us. But yes, considering the fact that only next November we are having a test series, and most importantly, even if Ashwin can retire post that test series, so that will become a void. I mean, if you're going to leave in the middle of a WTC cycle, right? I think that is going to create more of a confusion, because let's say that let's leave out this cycle, right? So whatever the result is, either India qualified to the finals or don't qualify to the WTC finals, they can have a clarity moving on to the next cycle, because you're not sure how many days. I mean, the blunt truth is that you're not sure on how many days Rohit Sharma is going to captain the Indian team. They'll have a word with Virat Kohli as well on how many years he is seeing himself playing Test cricket. I mean, they can definitely play, but a couple of failures, definitely generates a lot of questions, right? Like generally, you open Twitter, and in the recent days, you see a lot of people having these doubts whether when they might announce their retirement as well. I mean, genuinely, I thought for a moment I thought that we might see Virat Kohli or Rohit Sharma retiring, because I saw a few rumors as well on Twitter that Rohit Sharma leaving his gloves behind I mean, not behind the boundary ropes, near to the side screen, right? So there were rumors as well that Rohit Sharma might retire halfway down the tour. So there are a lot of guessing games going on, right? So yeah, it was Ravichandran Ashwin, but yeah, to be very honest, keeping the emotion aside, thinking slightly practically, I think this could be a right decision, because you can talk to Rohit Sharma, you can talk to Ravichandran Ashwin, or rather without Ravichandran Ashwin at this point in time for the next WTC cycle. I think definitely the selectors will have some kind of clarity moving forward, because the WTC cycle is definitely a longer one, right? It's they're gonna go for a couple of years. So the clarity is very important, and I definitely think Indian team have got it as well, because Rohit Sharma as well has a point to prove in the next couple of tests. To be very honest, so yes, I mean, very emotional moment for all of us as Indian fans. But yeah, I mean, all good things have to come to an end, right?
Yes, definitely. I just wanted to add one more thing. It's very important, as you mentioned, that it's very difficult to replace Ashwin here at this moment. Yes, Washington Sundar has played well, but still at that level, obviously, it will take a lot of time, a lot of experience, a lot of practice, especially in Indian conditions for any player. Obviously, Washington Sundar is the closest replacement so far, what we have seen. But to have that kind of control and probably the amount of variations he had, and he was probably in his early 30s, he was unplayable in India. Most of the reason why India was undefeatable in the domestic
Mm,
season or in the conditions was primarily because of Ashwin, not even Jadeja. I'll say
yes.
Ashwin was
Yeah.
the primary
Yes.
reason why India was undefeated for such a long time. After 2013, we didn't lose. We didn't lose a series, I guess. Yes. So and we just lost the series against New Zealand. Obviously, there were various factors
True.
behind that, but the primary reason why India didn't lose any of the matches or any of the series, I think, because we had Ashwin, and probably because of his all abilities in Indian soil, he could have provided few runs with the bat as well. That was the reason why India held with that test match for a long time, and obviously we qualified as well twice. So again, very important player who has played a crucial role in the test success along with Virat, Bumrah, and other players, Ajinkya and Pujara as well. Ashwin was again the key founding members of this kind of cricket that India played in the last 10, 15 years. So yes, first of all, congratulations to Ashwin on his career. And yes, one more important thing, I think there were some questions that I had in my mind, and few of the other people, I heard it, I saw in social media as well. Most of the people were saying that he should have at least waited for this WTC. But the question is whether he would have got chance to play in this cycle,
Exactly.
in this, even if they would have qualified, whether he would have been the first in the conditions of England to play WTC final because he didn't play the last against New Zealand. I still remember he played and he played really well. His
Yes.
performance was. But when we played against Australia in 23 in the WTC final, he didn't got a chance, and obviously for right reasons because someone like Jadeja could be a better fit in those conditions. So I think that could again be a reason because even if he would have stayed till this cycle and if we would have qualified, still he would have seated in the extra seat. That could have been a factor role.
Yes, definitely. I think he's analyzed those factors as well, but maybe not the WTC final. But what I would have thought is maybe post the BGT he could have announced maybe at Melbourne. I think if we, or not at Melbourne, maybe at Sydney, right? The last test at Sydney, yeah. So maybe if he would have. Yeah, yeah. So if you would have announced it at Sydney, I think that would have been a better end, right? Like it would have been like a conclusion kind of a thing. But Indian players retiring in the middle of a BGT, we have seen Anil Kumble do that. We have seen MS Dhoni do that, and straightforward. A player who MS Dhoni has groomed one, 10-year challenge down the lane in BGT.
Yes.
So yes, you rightly mentioned. I mean, maybe at the end of BGT, I think even Rohit Sharma mentioned that, right? Even at Perth as well, Ashwin had already conveyed that he had plans of retirement as well. But it was Rohit Sharma who had convinced that to play one more game. And yes, maybe not sure that they would have communicated it to Ashwin as well. But maybe the moment he had told this decision to retire, maybe he would have got the communication as well that they might not see him for the next playing for the next couple of games as well in this series. So. Yes, but definitely, I think WTC final is very difficult, right? Because you have Washington Sundar who's been doing well with the bat as well. So I mean,
Mm,
he can contribute with the bat as well. And at the other end, you have Jadeja, obviously for obvious reasons. He showed why he's one of the most sought after all rounders in the world, even today. I mean, even in the first innings, he showed why he's one of the best rated all rounders. So. In that regard, yes, especially if you remember, I think this question had started coming in our minds, especially in the 2021 England tour, because he had been throughout the series with the Indian team. I think that was the first time I started having that feeling whether Ashwin might consider retirement. Like in an early part of his career, because you mentioned for a fact that at least till the 40s he would play. I mean, that was I think most of the cricket fans, I mean, would have thought that. But yes, if Ashwin had retired at an as retired slightly earlier, as you mentioned, I think that would be the only reason. I think that series was an indication where I think he hadn't played a single match as well in that tour, 2021 tour. So I think that's where he got a clarity. Sorry.
Yes, I think in 21 England series we are mentioning, right? You're talking about
Yes,
21
yes.
England.
Yeah, so in that series, he hadn't actually played a single game. So I think that was a point where Ashwin had actually realized that maybe in overseas conditions he's not the first preferred spinner. Ahead of Jadeja or maybe not Washington those days. Or those days Shardul Thakur was an important part of the setup as well. So yeah, a lot of ideas would have come to Ashwin then as well, and not playing the WTC final as well in 2023 as you mentioned. So there have been a lot of events that have come through, and most importantly, if you could remember, Ashwin in the video of congratulating Shikhar Dhawan on his retirement as well, right? So in that video, he had mentioned for a fact that to Prasanna, who he regularly talks with, right, through his videos. So he had mentioned that you would see a few more in the coming days. I mean, I think that at that point it was predicted, but not this early to be very honest. And in Anirudh Srikanth as well in his YouTube channel has mentioned for a fact that he had already told him that maybe pre BGT he might retire as well. In a recently posted video, he has conveyed that information as well. So I think this was on the cards. Not a pretty much big surprise for the people who are actually there involved in that unit. I mean, Indian cricket management as well. The close friends of Ashwin, who know Ravichandran Ashwin really well. They don't really see it as a big surprise. But yes, I think definitely this is a huge surprise that we are, as fans, it's a really tough time for us. Something that is very tough to digest, tough to sink as well. Come into reality. So yeah, I think to answer your question, Ritik, I'm really sorry. Like I'm trying, deviating out of the topic. So yeah, uh, trying to I think the foreign tours not being a part of the 11 in most of the occasions. I think that has really had Ashwin to take this decision. Especially at this point in his career, because he's still ranked number 3 in ICC all rounders rankings, right?
Yes, but I love his clarity. See, for him, if we talk from individual point of view, from individual achievements that he could have achieved in the coming years, definitely he would have got opportunities in the domestic season. But keeping in mind
Yes.
the long term objective of the team, he understood that okay, my 11, if he's there in the 11, that will not make a bigger difference in the larger picture of the team, because in long term he's not going to
Exactly.
be there, and he understands that okay, even if I'm there in the domestic season, even if I'm there playing the matches that are being hosted in India, that will still not be more effective for the team, because there will always be in and out, and irrespective, other than him, there could be someone else like Washington Sundar who can be groomed in both the conditions. So I think he's very selfless in that way as well, because he understood that he will get chances to play in domestic in the Indian season, but still keeping in mind, because he won't be effective in the foreign conditions, and he wanted someone, a new person, a new player like Washington as well, or you can say with nowadays with Nitish as well, he's playing really well. Obviously, he's a different player, but because he's an all
Yeah.
rounder, he will provide balance to the team as well. I think he understood clearly that what is best for the team, and accordingly has made his decision, because he could have easily played for 2 3 years as we were discussing. Especially, he could have been there in the test side. Obviously, he wouldn't have got
Yes.
enough chances when the team was would have toured. But keeping in mind that he chose that selfless way of retiring, he didn't wait it for a farewell match. He wanted to be very clear with things. I think that's the only thing that he is very different with most of the players. The mental toughness, I always associate Ashwin with that mental toughness, clarity of thought.
Yeah.
This is something that I haven't seen in any of the cricketers. Very rarely I have seen that. Obviously, Pat Cummins, and there are a few other players who are very recent to this, but especially someone who is there in India who has played cricket so much under pressure, to have that clarity, to have that courage to come up and say his thoughts. I think this is something that always has kept Ashwin very different and very special in my mind. And I think that's what is something that I think we should, everyone, in any individual who is working in a different profession, that mental toughness, that clarity of thought is something that always will be resonated with Ashwin's career. And this, yes, continuing with the same question, he said that a lot of cricket is still left. He probably want to play Ranji and all the other tournaments that India has in domestic circle, the Irani Cups, Vijay Hazare, Syed Mushtaq Ali. Hopefully, IPL is something that he has been successful since the time he has played. I can't remember a single season that he was not very successful, especially with the ball. Always, I've seen the economy is under 8, under 7, and now especially with Rajasthan Royal, he had some luck with batting as well. He was very effective. He provided that balance, played most of the games, and now going back to Chennai, this could be his last cycle of IPL as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think this would be his last cycle, but there are a few people who suggest that he might retire this season as well. But I don't really see that happening because, as you mentioned, he has also said that he has a few years of cricket left him. So yeah, this cycle is going to play in my opinion. I think 3 years down the line he's going to play. The last 3 seasons of the IPL. So yeah, in that way, I think IPL is a different commodity altogether. You just mentioned one fact that Ashwin has been very successful throughout the IPL seasons that he's played. The only concerning factor for me, or rather the only concerning factor that people have spoken about, is his ability to take wickets. Like so, if you just take the stats, right? Pre 2018, you see Ashwin, he was a more of a wicket taker, right? But in the recent, like let's say 5 6 years down the line, let's say that since the time he had captain Punjab in, I think, in 2018, post the mega auction.
Yes,
So since that point in time, he's been a bowler who's contained more, correct? Who's stopped the flow of runs, who's bowled more economically, and that is the reason I think there has been a slight increase in the average bowling average, and the economy has pretty much remained stable, as you mentioned. So I think, or 3 to 4 games in a season, he will provide you with the 2 wicket hauls, the 3 wicket hauls, 4 wicket hauls. I think that is something that you can expect from Ashwin. But any on any given day on most of the surfaces, he'll give you none for 13 4 overs, that which is a very very good bowling spell in the current generation. So yeah, he's going to be a valuable asset in the IPL, and most important, don't be surprised if he can play at least the 2 seasons of Ranji Trophy, right? He might be
yes,
very very hungry on getting a Ranji Trophy for Tamil Nadu, because I can tell you this thing: the only thing, the only trophy that is remaining in Tamil Nadu's cabinet is the Ranji Trophy, because in the recent few years, they have been successful in winning the Syed Mushtaq Ali. They have done well in Vijay Hazare as well. But the only thing that is missing is the Ranji Trophy, and someone from this part of the country, I can tell you that that has been something that has been missing, and people have spoken a lot about it, because if you can recollect as well, in the recently concluded Ranji Trophy, right? So whereby Sai Kishore was the captain of Tamil Nadu. That at that point in time, there had been some allegations
yeah,
with the coach as well, regarding maybe who they had batted first, or rather there had been few allegations, right? Things were not smooth, if you could put it that way. So in that regard, definitely Ashwin, I think, would go back, similar to what Wasim Jaffer did to Mumbai, or rather to Vidarbha, if I'm not wrong. I think he played his last phase for Vidarbha, right? Yeah,
yes,
yeah, so I think Ashwin is definitely capable of doing that, and he will go back. He might come back, get a Ranji Trophy for Tamil Nadu as well, and I think he would have that as a motivation to move forward. I think he will definitely see him playing the KNPL as well, because he's done really well with Dindigul Dragons. They're also the defending champions. I mean, he does everything there. He bats, he captains. He does everything. So in that regard, I think, yeah, he's going to play the TNPL, he's going to play the IPL, and most importantly, in Tamil Nadu cricket circuit, that is a TNCA division. So you have different divisions in that. So he plays for, obviously he plays for the first division, and he'll play there as well. That is something that you're going to see. And the most important point, Ritik, people, I don't know how many people have addressed this. I think the contribution of Ashwin as a player is only done. He has a lot and lot. I mean, in the decades to come, right? He has a lot
yeah,
more to give as a coach. And don't be surprised, even in the next 3 or 4 years, you see him as the bowling coach of the Indian team. I don't see a surprise at all. In some way or the other, he's going to contribute to cricket, and I think there is no second thoughts to it. And he's a part of the CSK Academy as well now, with India Simmons. So I think he's playing for Chennai Super Kings as well. And once he's done with his IPL as well, or rather playing days in the IPL, I think he'll definitely be a part of the Chennai Super Kings management as well. And yes, as I mentioned. if he doesn't play the IPL, don't be surprised him getting straight away roped in as one of the part of Indian team's management as well.
I was about to come to the same question. I was just about to ask you what's the future like. Will he enter into broadcasting? But yes, personally, we both have discussed a lot about his cricketing brain that he's miles ahead of most of the players. So it's very difficult for anyone to match with him. So probably maybe the best person to coach India, and probably yes, as you mentioned, I think even if he plays Ranji for next 2 years, as you mentioned, it's going to be an important time for the whole team because a lot of learning how to perform at the higher level, what mindset you need to have to dominate the game. I think these all things are very important and that are very much needed, especially at the domestic level. We need more cricketers
Mm,
who are mental, especially because it's not easy, especially to play for India in big games and not to have pressure. I think Ashwin is very few players. I mean, there are very few players like Ashwin who can handle that pressure.
mm,
We have seen performing well under pressure. We have seen Hardik, but I think out of we have seen Bumrah. But I think other than these three, there are very few players in the last decade who have been able to perform well under pressure. So I think that is something that obviously Ashwin can play a bigger role and can help the domestic and the young players how to be mentally tough. And yes, talking about his IPL performances as well, I think yes, he hasn't got wickets, but I think at this moment, if I'm a IPL team head coach and I need an off spinner who can give me 4 good overs, I can't see any other bowler than him. Washington Sundar still in the last few years hasn't been that successful in IPL. Last
yes.
season that he had was with I think with RCB. Even after that with
Yeah.
SRH
Yeah.
being big season. But yes, so still I can't see anyone else than Ashwin as a right arm off spinner who
True.
can bat, who can be a very helpful pillar to captain as well. So I think and he's played in Rajasthan along with Chahal, who's a completely different bowler. So I think when I'm on the opposition and I'm seeing from one end Ashwin and from second Chahal, obviously I'm going to attack Chahal because he's someone who flights the ball, who will toss the ball up more often. And definitely the overs that I'm playing against Ashwin, I'll try to be slightly more defensive. So I think that could again be a reason because he's played with Chahal, so that's why he hasn't got that much wickets. But I think still, as I'll totally agree with you, but I think that he's going to play at least next 2 or 3 seasons. Exactly what MS has done. He has prioritized IPL. He retired from international cricket quite a few. I think in 2019 he played his last game. After that, still
Yes.
he's playing IPL. Very very similar thing. Ashwin can do that, and he's fit enough. More importantly, as an off spinner, it's slightly less challenging to perform
Yes.
in IPL. Fitness for fast bowler, it's a completely different ballgame altogether. But yes, coming back to my question, as you mentioned, what is the next role for Ashwin? Because I personally think initially he can start with an IPL team, for example, Chennai's bowling coach, or a head coach of any other franchise as well. But in long run, I'm seeing him in the Indian dugout as a head coach, as a bowling coach. I don't know exactly what's the designation going to be, but I see him as the managing member of. I'm not even sure about administration part, but at least in coaching, I'm seeing him in the Indian dugout. What's your plan on that?
Yeah, so consider 25, 26, 27, 3 years of IPL, right? So before next mega auction, have 2027 in mind, and the next before the next mega auction, obviously, let's say that he's retiring in 2027, right, from the IPL, and the moment he does that, I think post Gautam Gambhir, I think the contract is for 3 years, right, for Gautam Gambhir. That is this coaching panel.
I think it's still
How does it work?
27 post World Cup. It's gonna end. So I think till 27
Acha,
World Cup,
so
Gambhir.
yeah, till
Yeah,
2027 World Cup, right? So what they will do is you can have 27 World Cup and the next immediate tenure. But I don't think you can have Ashwin there because there is some rule, right? Like you will have to have 5 years post your retirement. So that should be 3 years, correct?
yeah. I think
If I'm not wrong,
some
there
rule
is a
like that.
condition I think.
Yeah, there
So
is
once
condition.
he's done, yeah. So once he's done with that, maybe you can see that him in the administration part. You can see him as a selector as well. That is a completely different thing altogether. You can see him as the Indian selector as well, and with that cricketing brain, you can definitely afford to have someone like Ashwin as the selector. But yes, 2031, I think anywhere near 2030, 2029, you might see him in the Indian dugout. There is no second thought about it. And once he's done with his playing days, right? You can see him in the Chennai Super Kings dugout. There is obviously also there is no question about it because you need an Indian core member.
Yeah.
We have seen Suresh Raina play for the CSK franchise, but he hasn't been in the coaching setup as well post his playing days. But
Yeah.
never doubt, Ashwin, I think he will be a part of the coaching setup of Chennai Super Kings, and more importantly, he's the academic director as well. Taking part of taking care of a lot of Chennai Super Kings activities behind the scenes. So yeah, definitely, not being surprised. Or rather, he can do another role as well. He can be a bowling because CSK don't have a bowling coach at this point in time. He can, be like Shane Warne as well, a coach come player.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
How similar to Rajasthan Royals did with Shane Warne, right? They can even do that, but I think that is too early at this point in time. But post 27, I think you might see him in the dugout, and he is going to be there in and around. The cricketing circle. I mean, that is what he's told as well. If you see in the final huddle that the Indian team have posted, right? So, I mean, it's very clear. He said that the cricket fanatic in me is never going to go away. So, yeah, he's going to be there in and around and be going to serve Indian cricket for a long time. There is no doubting that.
Yes, definitely. I think probably the sharpest cricketer, sharpest player I have seen. I've seen in the last few years since the time I've started following cricket. So yes, definitely all the best for future. And I think personally, me and Rohit definitely think that he's gonna make big in the next role as well. Whatever he opts to, whether it's a team director, or whether it's a bowling coach, whether it's completely something else. All the best for it. And I think he's gonna be very successful in that. And with that, we'll probably shift in, dive in for a few minutes on the BGT as well, on what's ahead of us. Fourth test and the fifth test, Boxing Day, 26th December, the biggest test match of the day, India versus Australia. It's already houseful. What's your predictions? And I personally think India is in a comparatively better state when they are entering to MCG. What's your take on the fourth test, and how do you think this can pan out in the next two test matches for India?
Yeah, it's a huge confidence booster, right? Where like yes, there are a lot of people on social media as well, saying for a fact that they have crossed the follow on, but you see the dugout celebrating, right? You see the dressing room celebrations in the dressing room. I think that is not a healthy environment and all. There are people who comment on that as well. But what is my personal opinion is you have hit the Australians psychologically, and
Yes.
that is where you need to target the Aussies, because they are somebody who also do the same, right? They try to hit the opposition mentally, and no better than Indian fans to remember that. I mean, we remember what he did on 18th of November 2023, right? In that press conference, what Pat Cummins did exactly. So a lot of things you need to hit them mentally, and I'll tell you this thing as well. you know Pat Cummins coming in and declaring at that point in time, you would understand that they are going in for a fight, and you most importantly you have the fear factor as well. And if you have the fear factor that India might breach the GABA once again. I mean, you definitely had scared them. That, to be very honest, in my opinion, I definitely feel that India will be more confident. Yes, take nothing away from Australia, because they have been really good. I mean, Travis said has been in fine touch whatsoever. But definitely, yes, I think in one way, India have slightly disturbed the confidence of Australia. But I think India will go more confident, and early prediction. But don't be surprised if India win the next two games.
Yes, I think the track record for India as well on Melbourne has been very good in the last two seasons series. If we see the last match that India played in Melbourne, the Test match, Ajinkya scored a century. That was a comeback match, and again led to a terrific
Yes.
win for India. I think even before that, India won in Melbourne. I guess, if I'm not wrong. I think we
Yes,
lost
yes.
in.
I think Perth. We
Yeah.
lost in Perth in 2019. We lost in Perth. Yes.
So I think in terms of track record as well, Melbourne has been a good serving ground for India. So I think yes, personally, and he's talking about celebration as well. I think even Pat Cummins in a post match interview or in some interview just after that mentioned that I was really surprised seeing them celebrating the following. To be honest, whatever the reason is, whatever the celebration is, we saved the game. At the end of the day, we
Yeah.
have said that
Yeah. Definitely.
you are not able to get the last wicket. So whatever the celebration is, I think it's it's worth it. So I don't think, I think he
Yes.
as well at the same time is trying to play a mental game by saying all these statements. So he's again, and I think this was again the same question that someone asked to Rohit in today's post match. So he said that I've been enough in I've been enough in Australia to understand all these things. So don't try to ask me these questions that whether this was a mental game or not. He said that I completely know when a person is trying to poke. So I think that was his
Mhm.
statement. That was objective. Exactly, those were not the words, but I think what he meant was he understands when a person is trying to play a mental game or all these things, mind games, you can say. So I think yes, he had that clarity. And now with moving in, is there any change or you want to go with the same team? Because Jadeja was not effective with the ball, but purely because of his batting talent, he scored typical 70 runs. So accordingly, do you want to go with Washington Sundar, keeping in mind there are too many left-handers, or you want to stick with Jadeja? At this moment, obviously, I think Jadeja will have an edge. Yes, yes,
Yeah,
Rohit,
yeah,
you can go.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, yeah, 100%. I mean, I think more than playing Washington, or rather, you can have Jadeja as well because he's contributed the bat. You mentioned the point. You were on point. I think this Test match, right? I'm a huge fan of Rohit Sharma's captaincy. I mean, you know that as well. But I think definitely it was Rohit's captaincy that had put India down. I mean, to be very honest with you, because I think you have those stats as well. When Rohit Sharma has captained India against Australia, when Travis Head has been in the 11, his average has been higher, right? Without Rohit Sharma being the captain, his average is lower, right?
Yes,
So what is my strategy is that it's very simple. You can play either of Jadeja or Washington because yes, he's a left arm spinner. The Washington is an off spinner. Yes, but more than the commodity, if you're going to play in subcontinent conditions or in Asian conditions, you can definitely have that as a talking point. But in my opinion, Jadeja is someone who's going to bowl stump to stump, correct? So what it automatically does is keep your fields right. Because what I personally think is for someone like Travis said, right? You could remember what happened in second innings in Perth, right? So what exactly happened was he got an 89, but you ended up getting his wicket. Why did you end up getting his wicket? Because you had attacked the entire time that he was batting. Correct? For a player like Travis said, for a player like Travis Head's caliber, what you're going to do is what mistake India have done is, if you're going to give him four boundaries and put five fielders on the boundary, you're going to have a deep mid wicket, you're going to have a deep square, like long on, long off, you're going to have a deep point. I mean, straight away you're giving the liberty to Travis Head, right? You're going to give him a single. You're going to come back. You're going to let them rotate the strike easily, and you will let him find those odd boundaries because he's very very strong. With his cuts and pulls. So if you're going to have a defensive field straight away, the runs are going to keep flowing. Correct? Or rather, if you're going to get those boundaries, you're going to get singles. So the pressure is straight away off you. Correct? So I think in that regard, now let's get back to where India have been successful against Travis Head. Let's talk about Perth. So what had exactly happened in Perth is he's got 89 in the second innings as I've mentioned. But how did he get those 89 runs? 89 runs was when he didn't get those runs comfortably. Correct? There were those drives coming in, and most important thing, you tell me as a fast bowler in Australia, if a batter is going to drive you straight down the ground or through the covers, I think you're perfectly okay with it. Correct. As a
yeah,
fast bowler, you want to be driven through the offside in a test match or straight down the ground. You would take it because you're going to concede four boundaries, five boundaries, maybe the sixth boundary. You're going to find the edge. You're going to have a third slip or a gully. You might find the edge. So what is the only strategy I'm telling you is Travis Head is going to come in and attack, right? There is absolutely no second thought about it. But you have an attacking field. You give him six boundaries. You let him get those 40 runs, but get him past the 40 runs because he's going to give you a life, right? There is no second thought about it. Because players like AB de Villiers for that matter, players like Travis Head, players like Glenn Maxwell. So these are kind of players who are X factors. Rishabh Pant as well, right? So these are players who can definitely turn the game, but they are going to play high risk cricket. They are going to give you with chances. Correct. So it's very very important that even though you give the runs, It's very important that how soon you get them, because if you're going to, try to go defensive against them, I mean, that's what happened exactly at Gaba, right? India had given him 88 runs, but got him in at Perth. But India tried to be slightly defensive and ended up
Yeah.
conceding 150 to Travis Head, like 50, 60 runs extra in the context of the test match, right? So makes a lot of difference. So I think captaincy wise, be more slightly attacking. To answer your question, I will prefer Jadeja because I think more than the conditions, I think confidence will play a huge matter. Cricket is a game of confidence. So have better fields, start attacking. Have good catching positions. That's the most important thing. I mean, doesn't mean that you need not have any deep fielders. Correct. You can have a sweeper cover. You can have a deep mid wicket. You can have a deep square leg. Correct. But what you can do is you can have a catching covers. You can try to have a silly mid off. I mean, that's what Ajinkya Rahane does brilliantly. I mean, people
Hmm.
don't talk about that, but what did he do in 2021? When he had found that Manas Labuschagne was slightly, in form, getting those hundreds.
Yeah.
He suddenly used to place himself at leg slip. He used to bring in a
Hmm.
short leg. He used to bring in a silly point. He used to have a catching covers. So somehow or the other, you will have to, keep having an upper hand in the mind of the batters. I mean, that's what Ravichandran Ashwin does, right? Like that is the success formula of R. Ashwin as well. So yeah, I think start attacking more. But yes, playing Jadeja, I mean, yeah, that is. I will play Jadeja because of his confidence level at this point in time.
I think that is something that is a conscious call that can be taken by everyone because I think Bumrah led in the first team in the first match, and obviously Virat is again a very attacking captain. You never know why that decision was taken of being defensive against Travis, and I think this is something that most of us were thinking at that time when he scored a century. And when you go defensive, especially the one who is batting along him, also get a lot of confidence. So it again turns out to be very difficult at that time to get wickets for the other batter as well. So yes, rightly, I think has to go attacking against him, and especially with the bowlers. Actually, in the highlights as well, I haven't seen him play the cover drive because probably the reason why most of the bowlers, I think they stick with that shorter delivery, and most of the people think that he can get out on those pull shots. But I don't think that personally. I think that bigger weakness of him is outside of along that area of uncertainty, slightly fuller good length. I think that is something that is an area that he's gotten out, and I think he's someone who loves to pull the ball, who stays on the crease.
Yeah,
So normally I have
yeah.
been committing on the that much, and that's why even on those good length plays, he try to play across cross-started shots, and most of the times I think even if we see the dismissal today, that was slightly more shorter, but again because he
He
was
cramped him
already
for
ready.
him.
Yeah, that's why. So I think that is something that obviously will be there in everyone's mind, but at the time of execution, are you able to think that? Are you able to think with that kind of mindset? I think this is something that obviously management, along with all the senior players, this discussion is gonna be there. So yes, I think yes, Travis said if we can get him out early, definitely I personally think we can win the next two games. At this moment, if I see weaknesses, obviously in Indian batting lineup, we our middle order is not performing. But I think
Yes,
With Australia as well, I think only Travis Head, and at most at this moment I can say is Alex Carey, who is constantly scoring 40, 50 runs. Other than these two players, I can't see anyone. Yes, Smith got a century, but again, that was not very comfortable century of him. He got some
exactly,
chances. It
exactly.
was not comfortable. It was rusty. So I think still, if we can get Travis Head out in the next two games, definitely we are going to win this game. And yes, coming back to the question of Australia's lineup as well. At this moment, everyone is thinking Mitchell Marsh should not be there in the 11. What's your take on that? And they don't have Cameron Green at
Uh,
this moment.
Yeah, exactly. I think that is the only issue that they have to sort out, and I don't think Hazelwood would be fit for the next game. So straight away, that is a straight swap. Scott Boland will come in. Yes, but I don't think they have an option as well at this point in time. Either of I think that applies to Nathan McSweeney as well. Because post Warner's retirement, I don't think they have found the perfect opening batter along with Usman Khawaja, right? So for both the slots, for both the opener and for Mitchell Marsh as well, as you mentioned, without the likes of Cameron Green, or rather Marcus Stoyan is not playing the red ball formats, right? You have to blame in the 11, and we must not underestimate Marsh as well, because even if you see today, right?
Yeah.
He was promoted up the order, correct, ahead of Steve Smith. In a belief that he might, go for those big shots. I mean, what Pat Cummins did today, I think that was expected from Mitchell Marsh. You saw Pat Cummins get a 9 ball 22 as well. Uh, so Mitchell Marsh as well can be that batter who can change the test match in a session, right? So we cannot underestimate him. But I think you cannot. The only factor, or rather only issue, is that Travis said, not Travis said, beg your pardon, Mitchell Marsh is slightly injury prone, correct? Slightly injury prone. So in that regard, you cannot use him more with the ball. So I think that is one cushion that Australia is slightly struggling now. And with Bolin coming in, I think bowling should not be an issue. But yes, if you don't have an apt replacement, I don't see anybody apt to replace Mitchell Marsh in the 11 at this point in time. And I don't think Australia will disturb that as well, because they're not that kind of a team who tend to take those kind of decisions. But yeah, this test match ending up in a draw. Pat Cummins, in the post-match presentation as well, sounded pretty much like he wanted this to be 2-1 at this point in time. I mean, the Pat Cummins that we know, right? So, yeah, so he had also mentioned that, and they will definitely want to, put the upper hand, and I don't think they will be under pressure as well, but they will not underestimate India, and that is the
Yes.
only thing that they'll do. But yes, I think March will play to answer your question.
Yes, I think
Do
bowling
you
is
see
not a
any other
concern.
app replacement?
I think at
No, no,
this
like
moment I was just about come to that point. I think they have Josh English in the squad, and at this moment Mitchell Marsh is not bowling enough. So they have few
yes.
handy all rounders. So Travis Head can come in with 5 or 6 overs. From the other side, we have Mandus Labuschagne as well. Steve Smith is also there. So I think at this moment, those 3 4 overs or at max 5 or 6 overs of Marsh are making a big difference. So at this moment,
Yeah.
keeping aside that, if he's not bowling, probably you can
Mhm.
pick in a proper. You can pick in Josh Inglis properly, probably at number 6 or 5, depending on whatever the position of the batting is, whatever the team balance is. So my only plan was to bring in a proper batter rather than an all-rounder, because eventually they don't have any all-rounder except Mitchell Marsh, and they have few all-rounders in terms of Travis Head and Mandus Labuschagne, who are already there in the
Mhm.
11. Irrespective, I think Josh Inglis, beg your pardon, I think can be a
Yeah.
better fit, because a proper batter is surely I'll pick any day than a player who is not completely fit either in batting or I think in bowling as well. So I think yes, that can be a factor. But as you rightly mentioned, Australia is not a team who will go with these changes. So keeping in mind that, I don't think as well that they are going to make some changes. I think they are going to stick with Mitchell Marsh. And yes, talking about bowling, I think it's a blessing in disguise. At this moment, uh,
Yes.
bowling is very accurate, very human. He can pitch 6 deliveries exactly into the same spot. And obviously, he's slightly different than the other two bowlers as well. His release is very, I think it's comparatively smaller in the stature. So ball skids a lot. I think that was something that I was seeing in the analytics of
Yeah.
the
Exactly.
of
Yeah. Yeah.
podcast. So he's a
Yeah.
different altogether that he's going to offer. So I think yes, bowling is not a big concern. Josh Hazelwood being injured, I think is not an area of concern for Australia. But yes, Mitchell Marsh, you never know. I think they're going to stick with that. Talking about India bowling, just we're going to end up with it. Talking about India's bowling. Obviously, whatever you say about Bumrah is less. What he has done in this series has taken over Kapil Dev in the amount of wickets, and especially
Yeah.
with the mental toughness he had yesterday. I still remember the second last over which Nathan Lyon was bowling. He was bowling over the wicket, flighting the ball up, and personally, everyone in the crowd plus everyone who was watching was expecting either of these two players to go for a big hit. I personally was expecting Bumrah that he will take his chances, and he
Uh,
defended every delivery. In line was hopeless at that time, because he was also expecting that Bumrah will take his chances and that he will get an opportunity. But he defended all the deliveries. So I think that kind of mental toughness, obviously, um, anything we say about Bumrah is less. So keeping aside, talking about Akash Deep and Mohammad Siraj obviously had a better game this time, and
yeah.
Akash Deep is coming in place of Harshit. What's your take on his performance? Because he bowled really well in the first innings, but didn't got enough wickets. In the second, first wicket, if we see of Nathan McSweeney, was not the best delivery, but still got a wicket. But against when he bowled to Mitchell Marsh, he got that wicket. That's my personal analyzation. I'll just ask you this question. I think whenever I've seen Akashdeep, the amount of lethalness that he has, he's very lethal in the first spell. But whenever he comes back in the second spell with probably a ball that
Hmm.
is not, and he's not that fresh, he's not that effective. I think that's again an area where he's slightly lagging out. What's your take on that?
I think you are. I think I'll agree with that point as well. But I think the issue is that post the shine of the ball is gone. Correct. He's trying to extract more from the surface. But
Hmm.
to be very honest, I rate Akashdeep very high. I mean, the little bit of that we have seen him in international cricket, and we have seen him do well for Bengal as well. So yeah, in that regard, if you can see Akashdeep, I think all he can do is he has got the skill. I think he's another version of Ishant Sharma, in my opinion. He doesn't maybe get the bounce due to the height factor that Ishant Sharma had, but otherwise, if he can pitch it in line, it's really difficult to play. And mind you, he's got a very good bouncer. You had mentioned that in the first innings, he had bowled well but hasn't got wickets. And if you can remember, on the first day morning or the second day we had played, right? Yes, on the second day morning, right? So the way that he bowled, the shorter deliveries that he bowled, they were really threatening. And Steve Smith didn't have a merry start to his innings. The first 30-35
Yeah.
runs, he was slightly struggling. I mean, you generally see Steve Smith, shuffling. All of the bowlers get confused, but I think Steve Smith himself was not in clarity. He was shuffling too much towards the off stump. So I think he had definitely threatened Steve Smith as well, which was bowling. So to get your point, when he comes back in the second spell, all I think he must do is, do what has worked for you. Keep it right on
Yeah.
line. Keep bowling that fourth, fifth stump line. Keep bowling to the stumps. What has got you wickets is he's constantly put the pressure. I mean, even today morning, if you can see, all he did was he was consistently bowling good lines. And yes, he got a wicket of the shorter delivery, but the pressure for runs had induced that
Yeah.
wicket. Correct. So all you
Yes,
have to do
definitely.
is do what has worked for you. Do not rely much on the shine of the ball or too much from the surface. All you can do is if you got the skill, keep doing that, and at the back end you might generate reverse swing as well. Correct, on a few occasions if you're gonna keep bowling that length. So why not?
Yes, definitely. I personally rate him high as well because when the series was starting as well, for me he was there in the 11th from the first match. I was really surprised when Harshit played. So yes, I personally rate him very high. But yes, this is something that I wanted to discuss, and hopefully, with that discussion, I think I got that understanding that he's probably gonna be in the next two matches. Not even I'm talking about Melbourne, but I think he's gonna be there till Sydney Test, that is there in the 2025 in January. So yes, I think these two matches are gonna be very important at this moment, as we have just discussed. We personally first think that India can win this BGT again and probably retain the trophy, and more importantly, go ahead in the finals of WTC. So yes, that's it from this video. We discussed about R. Ashwin's career, and hopefully, um, with both of us here, big fans of Ashwin, we have discussed few of his performances, few of his attributes that should be there in the upcoming generation of the cricketers as well. Indian cricket is going through transition, and yes, Ashwin has just announced his retirement today. So we discussed about that. We talked about Ashwin. We talked about the upcoming matches of BGT as well. So yes, that's it from this video, from this live. And thank you, Rohit. Thank you for joining
Thank you
us
so
and
much.
giving us so much precious insights about Ashwin and the upcoming BGT matches as well. So that's it. That's it from this video. Stay tuned, everyone, and thank you for watching. Thank you, Rohit.
Thank you so much.